Welcome back to another episode of the Oak and Rock Fatherhood YouTube channel. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by Anthony Migliarino. Running the Oak and Rock Fatherhood is something we take great pride in. And if you enjoy the content we're putting out, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the message with those who might need it. We're looking to improve families one man at a time. But honestly, the entire world needs to hear this message. Because when we talk about improved fathers, we're talking about being better men. And when we talk about better families and all the things like that, you start to ask the question, what does that mean? What are the metrics you're measuring yourself off of? What makes a good man? What makes a good father? And so today we're talking to the family men, but this applies to everybody. Being a better person and working and focusing on the people around you, that's what makes you an individual who not only elevates yourself, but you elevate those around you, not at your expense, but with you. It's that whole rising tide concept. Before we dive into that, though, Anthony, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. Life is good. Just hung out with my two little nephews for a week. That was excellent. Good time. Nothing but a lot of energy. Two young boys. But I'm looking forward to the conversation, as always. Right? What is a good father? How do we judge that? Are we being good fathers? It's a question I ask myself all the time, brother. Always.
It honestly, it's that like running in the background software, like on a computer. You're like, am
Yeah.
I doing the right thing? Especially because we talk about it. Because we're talking Oak and Rock fatherhood, that puts you in a position of authority. Who are you to talk to me about this? That's basically the question a lot of people ask. What makes you think you're doing the right thing? And we've admitted there are times we don't know. We're doing our best, but I mean, how do you know you're being a good father until your child grows up to not be a criminal? Your kid grows up to not be a serial killer or something like that. So how do you know? And I guess that's the question we're going to be answering today is what makes a good father? Like, let's look at universally, what things can we look at that we can say, this is what makes me a good dad? This is how I know I'm heading in the right direction.
Universally, that's
I think we
that's a,
have to approach it.
that's a tough one.
We can speak subjectively, but the advice we have to give, it has to be all good men would do something like X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So for you, where does that start? What's the foundation of, I guess, the decisions you
Oh
make and how
man,
you go about? I love throwing it your way first
that
because
is
now I get to
my
think about my answer.
no. That's my favorite phrase. Right, the king eats first. That's if I could just tweet that over and over and over again, I would. But for me, that's where it starts. My kids are a reflection of the work that I do, of who I am, how I behave, and how I treat myself. So I think it's for me, it starts there, right? How can I expect my kids to be good people if I'm not showing them exactly what that means? Now, if you break it down to universals or moral principles, I hold those things in my life to a high standard, right? I always try to show them the good example, right? I'm always trying to be honest. To me, truth is a pretty strong virtue, and it's how I parent. It's how I've parented now for almost 20 years. I don't lie to my kids. I don't hide things from them, and you know as a father, as a man, as I go through this journey of life, and I there's things that I improve, there's things that I become better at. I actually see them take shape within my children's personality and within their lives, right? Like as I conquer something and I become a better man, whether it's physicality or getting my diet dialed in, or even bettering my finances, learning about money. There's little bits and pieces that get given to my kids without them even knowing it, right? Just for simply being around me. And then that's the same thing with the other virtues, right? Let's say courage, love, kindness. So the more that I'm kind to myself, that I'm forgiving of myself, the more that I love myself, my kids get bits and pieces of that, right? They get to see it, they get to live it. So for me, that's where it starts, man. It really starts with taking care of yourself. To be a good man means that you really have to strive to find the things that make you who you are, and not just promote it, but give them to your kids, because they are an extension of both parents, but they're an extension of the father.
And I think that's an element that we have to really stress to men. And I know we try to do it. And it's funny when you talk about something that's common sense, you're like, yeah, just do it. But I think there are some out there who they didn't have, let's say masculine role models. They didn't have the best example of what it is to be a good man. And so they're told, well, a man A man, he fights, he drinks, he has a beard, while other men are told a real man shares all of his emotions, he's soft, he's welcoming to everybody. And both of these men are growing up in a world where they don't realize that it's all of that. A
Yeah.
man owns his emotions, but he's not emotional. A man owns his physicality, but he's not domineering with it. A man, if you have the proper example, you're all the things that society is saying in the right way, but they hyper extreme it. They amplify it all the way left or right, and not in the political spectrum. What I mean is the spectrum of aggressive versus insecure.
Yeah.
Confident and competent versus uh, altruistic, and your moral backbone is based upon what makes others happy. And so these men don't understand each other. And then here we are in the middle saying, no, you're both wrong and right. And for me, the
Perfect.
pyramid of what it is to be a man, it starts with masculinity. It starts with the man, and then it goes to the lover, and then to the father. And you don't have to be a father to be a good man, but you'll never be a good father if you're not good at being a man. And I think that's something men need to understand. To be a great father, to be the best father you can be for your family, you need to be a good individual, because father is nothing more than a title. It's cool that you have the title, but are you a good boss before you're given the title of boss? Yeah, that's why you got promoted. You're somebody that can lead. You've shown potential to go into that position and get the best from other people. So it's not the fact that they made you manager, all of a sudden you start trying. You had to have tried before that point. The same thing with man. And that's why I started this out with all men can take from this, because those who work on being better men will become great fathers. When you invest in yourself in that growth, that's how you jump into the family, but you're already cruising. And I see that with you. I see that with myself. I was a good dad from the beginning because I wanted to be a father. So I worked on myself as a man. I was working. I was confident. I was competent. I was open with my emotions. I shared things. I was very focused on trying to be my best self because I knew I had to be great to give greatness. And if you don't give it, you can't. If you don't live it, you can't give it. And so I was wondering, as you go through, has being a great father, does it change with age? Do you find yourself having to do more or less of certain aspects of who you are? Maybe more listening and less speaking as they get older?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. 24 years as a dad, and it's it's always changing, right? It's always evolving. There's never an instance where my kids were the same as they were yesterday. Um, so there's always, even when you think you have things dialed in, there's always something that's poking at your weakness, right? There's always something that you can learn the next day. And that shows up all the time in my home, right? There's conversations that I've never had with my daughters that I'll probably have next week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to me, though, that like, how do we define if we're a good dad, if we're a good father? You, we say this a lot, but you have to get feedback from your kids, right? You have to know that you're doing a good job. You have to ask your kids, hey, how's things going? How am I doing as a father? And it doesn't have to be those words, right? You phrase it and put it into your own context, and have those conversations with your kids. But I could tell you, man, at being 44, having a daughter who's 24 and another daughter who's 21, the level of connection, the level of conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis, it amazes me. There are things that my kids ask me or they talk to me about that I think back and I'm like, man, when I was their age, I wouldn't comprehend any of this, right? I really wouldn't understand what was going on. And I think those are the signs that we see of if we're being a good father, right? It's the level that our children are working at, right? It's not always obviously it's about us, but what is the job? What is our duty that we're doing? We're being a father. We're raising children into adulthood. And to me, this is a challenge because a lot of what society says, or a lot of what the social norm is, oh, what does your kid do? Right? It used to be like when you go out on a dating scene and a woman's like, oh, what do you do? That's your value somehow, right? What your
Mm-hmm.
job is, or so it's the same thing that I see happening with the kids, right? It's like, what do your kids do? And when people tell me that, ask me that, I'm like, my kids are happy. They do whatever they want. um, how they make money, or what career they have, or what college they went to. That doesn't define who they are, right? Those are just outlets, tools, things that they can use to better their life if they choose. So for me, the marker, or the thing that shows me that I'm being a good dad, that I was a good dad, is the happiness, the fulfillment, and the joy that my kids get in life. And not just what they show me, like what I want to see, but who they
Yep.
genuinely are, right? If things are tough, hey, dad, I have a problem. I need your advice. I need your input. I want them to come to me over anybody else in the world when those paths are crossed, right? When they have difficulty, when they know that the answer is going to be, the answer that's required is going to be thoughtful, considerate, reasonable, logical, and supportive. I want to make sure they're coming to me.
I think a lot of men will hear that and they'll think I want that. But they're going to
They should.
there's an element to that though. You can't expect your kids to do more than yourself. You can't expect them to be high functioning, getting after it. You said, well, what do your kids do? Well, they're happy. Well, they're happy because they know what it is they want. They know how to recognize someone who might not be good for them. They know these things because you've taught them. Well, how did you teach them? Well, you had to live that. You had to know when people were trying to manipulate you. You had to know that eating this or taking this or consuming this might not be what's best for you, and that you need to do something else or let that go. There's a lot of what people are doing. I'm going to edit that out. She fucking started walking on the keyboard. I was afraid she was going to cancel out of this.
No, it's good.
Hold on. I'm going to let her out.
Open rock, baby. Family friendly.
This will be the first one that I edit.
We'll see.
All right. No, this one's going. She was sleeping the whole fucking time, and she got up and started walking across the keyboard. I'm like, what the fuck? All right, back into it. And so when the kids see what you're doing, they emulate that. And so when I think of the fathers who are saying, well, I want my kids to be healthy, but he's overweight. I want my kids to try and really train at their sport or their schooling or chasing whatever ambition it is that they want. And then you see the dad who's given up on all of his dreams. These kids are going to follow your example, not your advice. You push yourself every day. I see it. You push yourself on the inside, the outside, the tangible, the intangible. You're working on you to be your best self and to make sure there's no stones left unturned. Your kids are going to do the same. They're doing the same. You're seeing it now. Mine are 12 and 9, and I'm seeing it now. My son coming out, I want to work out at 5 a.m. Okay, dude. And now we lift together. My daughter constantly, whenever I'm working out, she's down there flipping on her gymnastic stuff. They see me still moving my body, so they move their body. They know when I get older, I still have to work out. When we eat together or do things like that, they know, hey, we can have a snack. That's okay. But we can't live off snacks. And dad doesn't live off snacks. So it's not like the parents are sitting there eating their Doritos saying, hey, kid, train harder. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Like, no, we eat together. We work together. We train together. I live the life they're living. I'm just advanced in years. And that's something that I understand. It's confusing to some because they're taught that there's like classes. I'm an adult. You don't speak to me like that. I don't view it like that. You're a person. My child's a person. Y'all are the same. The words I use are different because they don't understand some of the advanced concepts I might be talking to you about because they haven't reached that point. They haven't had to. But if we're going to talk about raising functional children, I think that is a metric of what makes a good dad. You're a functional human being. You're somebody who mentally, physically, spiritually is working and improving and competent and surviving, or not just surviving, but thriving within the world that we're in today. If you want that for your kids, it's got to be you. And how many dads are just browbeaten? They've got their head in the sand and they're just kind of doing what the news tells them.
Yeah. No, and listen, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. And, it's, to me, it's obvious. And I would say most men would agree, most fathers would agree that your kids are a reflection of you, right? They're mirrors. They're going to show you who you are. And when we talk about physical fitness or we talk about finance, we get it real quick, right? We say, oh, look how successful my kid is. They got that from me. Right? We enjoy that. We love it. On the other side of that, though, there's a lot of parents that I talk to, a lot of fathers who are like, my kid's disrespectful, my kid doesn't listen, my kid is lazy, and they never see that the opposite. They never see that that's a reflection of what they're showing their kids,
It's a
of who
mirror.
they are.
The kids are mirroring what they're receiving.
Yeah, and that is a hard truth to deal with, right? That is a strong reality of where your weaknesses are and what you need to address as a man. So going back to the main question, right? How to be a good father. I think a lot of that needs to be addressed where we need to deal with our weakness, right? We can't run or hide from them, especially if our kids are openly showing us our weakness. So if and I know a lot of dads, a lot of parents are going to say, well, you don't, if your kid's disrespectful, that has nothing to do with you, or of course it does, right? If we're doing this thing called fatherhood, we have to own it. We have to take responsibility. Are kids different? Do some kids behave differently from others? Are some kids more reactive, more sensitive? Absolutely. They have personalities, right? They are who they are. But there is never a time where the things that we model, the things that we show them on a daily basis will not have an influence on who they become. It absolutely will, right? This is proven over and over and over again. It's non-debatable as far as I'm concerned. Your influence as a dad is going to be one of the greatest determining factors of who your children become, of how they respond to stress, to discomfort, how they respond to hard times, and the most important is how they respond to love and openness and building relationships with people. So when you see your kids struggling, whether it's with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or even making friends, you have to ask yourself, am I being a good example of this? Am I showing my kids what it really means to enter into a relationship with another person? Am I showing them that a husband is supposed to be supportive and loving of his wife, of their mother, right? These are all the examples we need to get dialed in, and we need to show our kids what healthy relationships look like. Otherwise, all we're doing is lying to ourselves.
That when you said something key there, when you're talking about, what do your kids do? I just realized how many men I've spoken to. Well, I bring them to practice and they play their sports. But what do you do? Like, what do you do as the dad? Oh, well, yeah, I got these kids and I got to run. Stop talking to me about your kids. Stop living through your kids. Both of my children are active. We got gymnastics, cheer, and baseball. They do things. Recently, we had a rocket fair, which is super cool because for years I've been saying if my kid wanted to build rockets, I'd support him. And he freaking went and built some rockets. So I was like, that's just very fitting for the timeline of the story that we've been talking about. But when you ask me, like, Zach, what do you do? Oh, shit. My kids, they're doing their life. Here's what I'm doing. I'll talk about FOE. I'll talk about planning events. I'll talk about Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I'll talk about my personal fitness goals. I'll talk about my financial goals. I'll talk about the things we're trying to build. I'll talk about moving here. I've got a stream of things. My whiteboard's right here of things I want to do, I am doing, I have done. And that has nothing to do with my kids because they are living their life. And I'm showing them that you still have a life as an adult when you have children. And so I'll tell you what a great man does. I'll tell you what a great man does not do. He does not live vicariously through his children. My kids' achievements in academics, sports, their personal whatever, have nothing to do with my personal goals I've set. I do not set my kids' goals. I support them in the approach to their goals. They tell me I want this. I tell them, hey, here's what I know about this. And here's somebody else I know who can help us with this. And here's the tools. I can work with you, but this is your goal, not mine. When men start to take that vicarious approach, they try to live their second best life through their kid. A lot of resentment builds up because they expect their child to do all the things they didn't do. And yet, because they didn't do them, they don't understand how to properly do them. So if a dad he had a hard time with girls, he had a hard time with, finances early on in life, he'll try to make the kid, Chad, you're going to kill it with the ladies. You're going to be the man. Why? Because you have these unfulfilled dreams. All right, you're going to invest. I'm going to take all of your money and put it over here. Why? Because you spent all of your money on candy or whatever when you were growing up. This is my life. These kids are individual. I don't even know, dude. These kids are individuals. They're not us. And so when I speak about, being respectful and showing other adults showing your children the same respect you show adults, I mean that in a literal sense. They are their own human beings. They're younger than adults, but they are their own people. They deserve that sense of sovereignty, and you treat them the way you would treat an adult. If I'm speaking to you, I will show respect because, hey, you are your own person. You're a human being. I give you that. Kids aren't afforded that in most homes. They're these servants, second-class citizens. It's like they're indentured servants, to be honest. They've got to work there, and in exchange, they get food and housing. But they got to, instead of tending the land, they've got to stroke the parents' ego. Go get these trophies, kid, and you can still live here. But if you don't get them, well, here comes the beating. It's unfortunate because that crushes their spirit. That crushes them from becoming and thriving and becoming their own individual who can just blossom in this world, which is possible. And so if you want to be a good man, understand, I am going to judge you on what you are doing, not for your kids. And I'm the motherfucker who created the family alpha, and I'm on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I talk about kids all the time, but if you ask me about me, Zac is not just my son and daughter and what I do with them. I am my own man. And that brings it back to that little pyramid you're talking about. You've got to be good at being man. And you mentioned, how they treat the mom and everything. That's the next step. You show them. A good father shows his children how a man interacts with a woman, an example for his son, and a model for the daughter. You model for her how she is to be treated, what she should expect in dating relationships. And, my daughter's 9, so we've not hit that. But I'm sure you have some experience where your girl's like, you have 2 daughters, and it's just, that's a part of life, man. Yeah. And I would assume that they put that standard into play with the men they let into their life. They don't have, and you tell me. I mean, I've not had to cross that bridge. I'm assuming you don't have junkies coming into your house saying, hey, I'm dating your daughter.
No, I mean, they, just like any point that we're at in our lives, right? We're continually growing. So I'm not gonna, I'll be honest. And there's been tough times, right? There's been guys who, after the fact, they're like, man, I can't believe that, I chose to spend time with that person.
Steve, who lives under the bridge, wasn't a good guy.
But that's okay, right? My kids understand that this is an ongoing process, right? That it's with anything within life, right? It's whether you start a business and you have to take a step back and go at something else, or you in a relationship with a man and you have to get out of that and search for somebody else, right? A lot of what I see is what I've seen in myself in this process of growth. So, I could see my daughters, they get into relationships, and when those relationships end, they don't look to jump into another one, right? It's not like I need somebody to complete me. What they do is like, man, wow, there were some things that I missed. There was some things that didn't go right. What do I need to work on myself to reassure that I can be better next time, right? That I can be a better, I can love openly. I can communicate effectively. I can enjoy the company of the person that I choose to bring in my life. So that's the ongoing process that I see with my kids, especially my daughters, now that they're older. My son, not so much. He's, he'll be like, yeah, I got a girlfriend. I don't have a girlfriend. There's not too much context to that right now. But I know, that when he gets his heart broken, he'll come to me. It'll happen. And we'll have those conversations. We'll be honest, we'll be open. And I'll let him know that there's things that he's going to pick up from me, what he sees with me and his mother. And there's things that he's going to have to figure out on his own. But regardless, he has that family unit, right? He has his parents. He even has his sisters that he can go to, which he does a lot. I would say he probably prefers to talk to them about these things more so than me now, which I got offended at first, but it's kind of actually cool to see the process happen.
I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
No, well, yeah. This might be a uncomfortable one. Not uncomfortable, but difficult to answer. Do you run into fathers, and we've had this discussion, do you run into fathers who have an easy time saying the kids' wins are the kids, let them have their glory, but when it's a loss, they take it personally, where the dad is like, man, the kid failed and I should have done more?
Yeah.
Because you and I have spoken that, because I did. I'm probably still evolving with that.
Yep.
I feel like I've got to fix it. Have you ever run into that yourself or worked with others who were like, fuck, they can have their wins, but when they lose, you kind of take it personally, like I should have helped them more?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that is an unhealthy attachment to shame, and a lot of us are conditioned that way, right? So
Yeah.
when our kids fail, we see it as our own wrongdoing, or even when our kids are misbehaved, or when they go through hard times. Um, to be a good man, you have to have some level of inner peace, right? You have to know that what you're working on, who you've become, who you're becoming, it's happening for a reason. And when things aren't going right, you have to make changes. It's the same thing with what you just described. So when your kids fail, you have to be aware of that. You don't have to be filled with shame. You don't have to have this worry and this doubt and uncertainty. You see it as an opportunity, where it's either a teachable lesson for your kids, right? You lean into it instead of moving away, because a lot of dads will move away, right? They'll
Yeah.
become isolated when they see their kids fail, or they'll put more pressure, right? And the more pressure applied is similar to you were saying when parents live through their kids. That's why they apply pressure, because they're so afraid that their kids are going to fail, that their kids will fail at relationships, they'll fail at career and opportunity. They keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, and that stress is from the father or from the parent. That's completely fabricated and dumped on the kid. So the other side of that is, what you were saying, when your kids do fail and you feel shame about it, that's completely created by the parent as well, right?
Mhm.
The kid doesn't know that yet. They're not thinking, oh my God, I let dad down. I'm such a bad kid. I'm such a bad person. They are responding to what we show them. So again, back to that inner peace model, the more confident we can become, the less we're going to dump our garbage on our kids, the less we're going to put all these negative thoughts and all this insecurity and fear and doubt onto our children, the more we can actually have solutions, or have a outlook that says it's okay, right? Things are going to get better, because that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an under-discussed element to fatherhood. We'll probably circle back around that a little bit more. And again, these are things I've learned, and that's why I'm kind of sharing with the world something you and I went through. Where I went to you, I was actually speak with you and Phil, philfoster.com, philfosterfitness.com. Check them out. Got to give this a shout out. But I was talking to you guys that as my kids are getting older, the challenges and the obstacles we're facing, they're getting a little bit bigger. It's no longer I can't find my block. It's interpersonal relationships. It's choices that in the moment they used to be so easy, and now they're not so easy. There's more layers to the things we're discussing. And I remember going to you guys, I'm like, I really hope, it was with my son, he makes this choice, or as he looks at this option. I was like, but I can't tell him that. He has to come to that choice. I cannot push him in the direction. And I was having a hard time. So I went to you guys and I was like drowning by biting my tongue and all the blood I was swallowing, because I'm like, I'm not going to say it because I know I can't influence him here. He needs to be able to make his choice and run with it. I was like, but in my head, I'm like, I could see a few layers down that I don't think he could see. And it didn't matter, because that's not my life to go down that path. What if that is the wrong path? He'd be like, right now I see it as being right. And I told him to go there. And so I was like, fuck. Well, I'm not going to tell him. I'm going to call my fucking dudes up and I'm going to bitch to them. And I did. And you guys, you eased it out. We smoothed out those wrinkles. And that was a few months ago. And he ended up making that choice entirely on his own. And things are rocking. And it's pretty cool to see. But I was like, if that had been from me looking at it now, if I had told him what to choose, it would have stripped the essence of why it would have been the right choice. It has to come from the kids. And so as fathers, I think there is a unhealthy attachment to especially motivated men. We want to help, we want to fix, we want to grind. And we're always telling people, sometimes your wife is talking to you just to tell you something, not for you to fix it. You need to know the difference. Yeah. Rarely is that put with a kid in the context. The kid is just telling you something, but they have to work through it, not for you to fix it. And as a dad, especially one that's motivated, has the best of intentions, which a lot of the dads coming across at work, they're looking to level up and be better. And so they want to fix the things that were broken, but they're not understanding sometimes Your job is to watch, observe, and be there to support, but not direct. And that was something I had to get over. But I mean, having you guys, you and Phil, you're further down the path than me. Some of the insights and things you've had to go through, it's really good for guys that are in my position, and then guys that are behind me coming up who are like, hey, my kid's turning 6 years old, and they're thinking about this, and I'm thinking about, even at that age, let them make those choices. If they fail, that's not your fault. You're there to help them learn the lesson. If they succeed, that's not your glory. They get to soak all that in. Again, though, you support and still talk about the lessons. You won because you made this choice. You lost because you made that choice. Cool. What do we learn from it? How can we carry that forward? What other areas of our life can we learn and apply that to? And so that's good, man, because sometimes we get stuck on the tangible. Should I spank them? Should I not spank them? Yeah, but the older they get, the more layers to this onion. Your kids turn more into an ogre. They got a lot of layers.
We almost went a whole episode not talking about hitting kids.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. I dropped that. I would say we can do the touch and go, but honestly, it's cool to think about how as men we give enough shits to even have this discussion.
Yeah.
People that are listening to this, at this point, our dad, well, I mean, at least my dad wasn't doing this. A lot of the dads I know weren't doing this. A lot of our peers aren't. But those who are, the fact that you're listening and thinking to this level of your interaction with your kids, man, that in itself is helping to set them up for future gains as individuals, because you're learning when to pull back and to let them do their thing. And honestly, with that pyramid, man, lover, father, we're now talking about the apex. We're talking about leading a human life through things that we don't even like. It's no longer you're going to have a farm, you're going to die on the farm like it was like way back in the day. Maybe there's a war, maybe not. Like the technology we're facing, we're in uncharted territory as fathers and family men, yet we're here and we're talking about it and we're figuring these things out. And honestly, it's just beautiful to see this thing continue to grow.
Yes, it is, man. I would make just one more point to clarify for a lot of the dads. To a certain level of degree, you will mess up your child, right? It's gonna happen. And just to be clear, because everything that doesn't run perfect, right? I don't always have the answers. I know you don't always have the answers. But the great thing about what we're doing, this community, fatherhood, is we get to have the conversations. We get to figure things out. We get to hear what's going on in our mind. We get to share them with our friends. And we get to find solutions, right? We get to find comfort knowing that we don't always have to be perfect. We don't always have to have the right answer. And when we don't, it's not going to completely destroy our family. It's not going to mess our kids up for life. Those are all processes that we have to grow. We have to become better, right? That's how we become good men. That's how we become good fathers. And we lose a lot of that with the noise of the current world. Like you said, man, the world is rapidly growing. Things are changing. But I wholeheartedly believe that if your intentions are good, if you're living with good moral character, good values, with virtue, there's no way that's not going to be passed down and reflected on your family, on your kids, on your legacy, right? It's going to show up 300 years from now in your great grandkid. And that, to me, that's why I do what I do, right? That's why I share my message. That's why I live my life the way I do. Because there's really no other way. Why would I want chaos, dysfunction, addiction, torture, all the garbage that everybody tries to sift through and say, no, I'm living. You don't have to have that, right? It doesn't have to be a part of your life. To be a good man, you can just go out and live it. You can pass it down to your kids. You can treat your wife appropriately with love and respect, and you can just keep building. To me, that's the goal.
Look, and when we talk about what it is to be a good father, you invest time in being a good father. You invest time in being a better man. That's what you're doing here watching us. So if you like the content we're putting out, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you share it, or make sure you drop your insights in the comments below and let us know how we could do better. What did we overlook? What aren't we talking about that you would like to see more of, that you have found have played a great role in being a great father yourself, or how you were raised? This is about swapping notes. And one of the things I don't ever want to get lost is that as Anthony and I continue to work to improve ourselves and to share the good word of what we're living and experiencing, we also are here to learn. We're learning from those that we're engaging with. We're learning from those that we're messaging with. the dads for the guys, the cigar room guys, men inside the fraternity of excellence, those who are following Oak and Rock Fatherhood, the DMs we get, we apply. A lot of our topics we brought up have come from stories of men saying, hey, have you ever done an episode on this? Or, hey, have you ever dealt with that? All right, let's talk about it. And for those who are saying, well, I didn't have a good example. Well, now you do. Now you've watched a video that talks about, here's some things you can do to be a better man, as a lover, and as a father. So again, stay tuned to the next episode. Like, subscribe, share. More importantly than anything, as always, apply what you've learned. Watch how it plays out with your children. Adjust accordingly. And apply again. We're going to keep it rolling. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Take care.